Welcome to the Shadow of History channel. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out more videos like this one. Photographed around 1900, young siblings Wilfred and Ruby Westwood posed together for this portrait, with Wilfred aged 3 and Ruby aged 7, capturing a quiet moment of childhood in the early 20th century. Captured in Oklahoma in 1939, this photograph documents a son and daughter of agricultural laborers, offering a glimpse into the hardship and resilience of rural American family life during the Great Depression era. During the Vietnam War, this American soldier was photographed in the field, becoming one of countless faces representing a generation of young men sent to fight in one of history's most controversial and costly conflicts. Side by side, these two images from the 1920s reveal the striking contrast between the quiet rural rhythms of Ireland and the towering, fast-moving energy of New York City during the same decade. In the 1980s, children leap from windows onto mattresses below, a scene that today appears strikingly dangerous, yet captures a remarkable and carefree moment from a different era of childhood. On Palm Sunday in 1954, a husband and wife posed proudly alongside their 11 children, creating a lasting family portrait that reflects the scale and devotion of mid-20th century family life. Taken in 1914 at Dr. Maxime Menard's radiology department at Cochin Hospital in Paris. This chest X-ray session captured early medical imaging in practice, though Menard himself would later lose a finger to the side effects of operating the machine. These two photographs of Abraham Lincoln, taken in 1858 and 1865, reveal the profound physical toll of his presidency and the Civil War, with the transformation across just 7 years telling a story no words fully can. In 1937, the former King Edward VIII, who had abdicated the British throne in December 1936 and been given the title Duke of Windsor, visited Nazi Germany alongside his wife Wallis Simpson, a journey that would shadow his legacy for decades. On the 6th of April 1972, in Saint-Brieuc, France, photographer Jacques Gourmelin captured the moment childhood friends Guy Bermieux, a worker, and Jean, Yvonne Antignac, a riot policeman, unexpectedly found themselves facing each other on opposite sides of a demonstration. At the 1927 Solvay Conference, 29 of the greatest scientific minds of the age gathered for this photograph, and 17 of them had either already won or would go on to win the Nobel Prize. Photographed in Wyoming in the 1960s, this Snow King chairlift image appears far more perilous than reality, as a combination of genuine safety risks and forced perspective made the lift look dramatically higher than it truly was. Born in 1935, Elvis Presley was only 2 years old when this photograph was taken in 1937, offering the world an early glimpse of the boy who would one day become one of the most iconic figures in music history. On her 63rd birthday in 1901, Annie Edison Taylor became the first person to survive a barrel ride over Niagara Falls, driven purely by financial ambition. Yet despite her historic achievement, she never earned the fortune she sought and died penniless. Tsar Nicholas II of Russia captured this self-portrait photograph, an early and surprisingly personal glimpse of the man who ruled one of history's most powerful empires before its dramatic and violent collapse in the early 20th century. 54 years after their original 1970 photograph, a family in Salford, England, gathered in 2024 to recreate the image with remarkable detail, bridging generations and offering a moving visual testament to the passage of time. In 1936, Adolf Hitler was photographed walking with Helga Goebbels, daughter of Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels, a man who in 1945, as Soviet forces closed in on Berlin, ordered all 6 of his own children killed by morphine and cyanide. In 1990, while British Airways Flight 5390 flew over Oxfordshire, an improperly installed windscreen panel failed, partially ejecting Captain Timothy Lancaster from the aircraft, where he was held in place for 20 minutes until the first officer safely landed at Southampton Airport. During World War I, the United States military experimented with dazzle camouflage, a bold pattern of geometric shapes in contrasting colors designed not to hide soldiers or ships, but to confuse enemies about their range, speed, and direction. In 1900, 2 elegantly dressed ladies rode through Vienna, Austria, in one of the earliest automobile models, their image captured and published in an automobile magazine at a time when cars were still a remarkable novelty. Photographed in Athens, Greece, in 1869, this image offers a rare and early glimpse of the ancient city, captured long before modern development transformed the landscape surrounding its timeless monuments. In Transylvania, Louisiana in 1937, a mother sat with her children to conduct their lessons at home, a quiet scene of determination and love set against the deep hardships of the Great Depression. When Freddie Mercury enrolled at London's Ealing Art College, he was just a young student. Yet it was there in 1968 that he began writing what would become one of rock music's most celebrated and complex compositions, Bohemian Rhapsody. A rotary dial wall phone from the 1970s stands as a symbol of an era when communication was deliberate and unhurried, each number requiring a slow, satisfying turn of the dial before a call could connect. Photographed in Beardstown, Illinois, in 1858, this portrait captures Abraham Lincoln without his iconic beard, offering a striking and rarely seen image of the future president before the Civil War reshaped both the nation and the man. Captured during construction, this photograph shows the elevator installed at the first level of the Eiffel Tower, documenting the remarkable engineering effort that went into building one of the world's most iconic structures. Published in H.G. Wells' 1908 science fiction novel The War in the Air, this illustrated plate depicted a monorail crossing the English Channel, presenting a bold and imaginative vision of transportation technology that the world had yet to invent. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, New York City's subway system became one of the most dangerous environments in the country, a grim reality captured in stark and haunting detail by photographer Willie Spiller. On the 11th of September 2128, Marcy Borders, a Bank of America employee who survived the collapse of the World Trade Center, was photographed entirely covered in dust, becoming so widely recognized that she was known ever after as the Dust Lady until her death from cancer on the 24th of August, 2015. After the devastating earthquake of 1906, Market Street in San Francisco lay in ruins, its broad thoroughfare reduced to rubble and ash in one of the most destructive natural disasters in American urban history. In 1982, a young boy sat absorbed in front of an Atari home video game console, embodying a generation of children for whom this technology represented an entirely new and thrilling way to experience play and imagination. In August 1986, at the corner of Broadway and West 49th Street, in Midtown Manhattan, New Yorkers gathered to play chess on the open street, a spontaneous and uniquely urban scene photographed by Yvonne Maurice. In a warm and candid photograph from the 1990s, comedian Chris Farley posed with his father at a beach on Lake Michigan, capturing a rare and tender glimpse of a beloved entertainer in a private family moment. In the 1890s, the face of the Statue of Liberty existed as a finished sculpture before it was ever attached to the body, photographed in this remarkable image that documents the extraordinary process of assembling one of the world's most recognizable monuments. Among the treasures discovered in the tomb of Tutankhamun, these golden sandals from the 18th dynasty stand as a breathtaking example of ancient Egyptian craftsmanship, now preserved at the Egyptian Museum of Antiquities in Cairo. Around 1954, sculptor Felix de Weldon was photographed working on the plaster model for the United States Marine Corps War Memorial, carefully shaping what would become one of America's most powerful and enduring monuments to military sacrifice. Taken in 1909, this portrait of Wanata Parker, a Comanche woman and daughter of the famous Chief Quanah Parker, was captured by photographer Alvin Rucker and is today preserved in the collection of the Oklahoma Historical Society. In the 1960s, Japanese-American architect Minoru Yamasaki posed beside a scale model of the Twin Towers, proudly presenting the design he had created for the original World Trade Center, a project that would define both his career and New York City's skyline. Between 1900 and 1910 in Cuba, a hired reader stood before workers in a cigar factory, reading aloud to them as they rolled cigars by hand, a tradition that helped ease the monotony of long hours of skilled manual labor. In 1930 in the United States, a woman smiled warmly as she pressed clothing with a flat iron in a laundry, her cheerful expression a quiet testament to the dignity found in everyday labor during an era of widespread economic hardship. The 1927 Bugatti Type 41 Royal Coupe Napoleon, one of the most prestigious automobiles ever built, was photographed alongside the family chauffeur, embodying the extraordinary craftsmanship and exclusivity that defined Bugatti's legendary reputation. Photographed in Biskra, Algeria, in 1870, this portrait of a Moorish woman offers a rare and intimate historical document of North African life and appearance during a period when such images were seldom made or preserved. A woman photographed grocery shopping in 1974 offers a vivid window into the retail and domestic rhythms of everyday American life during a decade of significant social and economic change. In 1891, a locomotive was photographed at the entrance to Tunnel 8 in Temiscopa Canyon, Mexico, documenting the ambitious expansion of rail infrastructure across North America in the late 19th century. Photographed around 1919, this image captured Stonehenge mid-reconstruction, revealing that the ancient monument's iconic arrangement was partly the result of 20th century restoration work rather than an entirely undisturbed prehistoric formation. In the early 1900s, a father and son posed together inside a plane on display at the Wisconsin State Fair, sharing a moment of wonder before aviation had become anything close to ordinary in everyday American life. This photograph, taken in 1991, is believed to be among the last images captured of Freddie Mercury before his death from bronchial pneumonia resulting from AIDS, offering a quiet and deeply poignant final glimpse of one of music's greatest performers. A street scene from 1960s London captures the energy and texture of the city during one of the most culturally vibrant decades in British history, when fashion, music, and social change were transforming everyday life on its busy pavements. In 1964, legendary director Alfred Hitchcock was photographed impersonating Beatles drummer Ringo Starr, a rare and playful image revealing the lighter side of one of cinema's most famously serious and meticulous creative minds. In 1921, in the rural countryside of Brittany, France, a village haircutter gave a bowl cut to a local resident, a simple and timeless scene that speaks to the self-sufficient rhythms of early 20th century community life. Photographed in Old Cairo in 1900, this portrait of a woman captures the quiet dignity and everyday presence of Egyptian urban life at the turn of the century, before the sweeping changes of the modern era transformed the city. In Havana, Cuba, in 1931, 4-year-old Sloppy Joe Jr., with 2 years already behind the bar, was photographed mixing his first champagne cocktail at his father's famous establishment, with a Havana cigar tucked proudly into the pocket of his bartender's apron. Photographed around the 1850s by Thomas M. Easterly, this striking portrait of an unidentified woman adorned with a cross necklace, earrings, a brooch, rings, bracelets, and waist chains is preserved today in the Missouri Historical Society collection. In 1880, one of Cleopatra's Needles, an ancient Egyptian obelisk gifted by Egypt's ruler to New York in 1879, was loaded aboard the steamship SS Dessau for its long voyage across the Atlantic to its permanent home in Central Park. In 1956, a Bic Pen promotional car took to the roads of France, an eye-catching marketing vehicle that helped introduce one of the world's most recognizable and affordable writing instruments to a new generation of consumers. In Sydney, Australia, in 1925, a char-a-banc built on a White Motor Company chassis from Cleveland, Ohio, with a body crafted by Sydney coach builders Smith and Waddington, carried tourists into the bushland surrounding the city. In the 1977 James Bond film The Spy Who Loved Me, Agent 007 received a message through his wristwatch in a scene that remarkably anticipated the smartwatch technology the world would not see for several more decades. In 1923, German children stood beside a towering stack of 100,000 marks, the entire sum worth just $1 United States dollar, a staggering image of the hyperinflation that had devastated the German economy in the aftermath of World War I. In 1945, as Berlin lay in the aftermath of wartime bombing, a shoe bill that had survived the destruction of the Berlin Zoo was tenderly cared for by its keeper in her own bathroom, a small and moving story of compassion amid the ruins. In Castellon, Texas, in 1939, a woman was photographed by Luis Martin grinding coffee beans at the local store and post office, a quiet domestic scene that speaks to the simple rhythms of life in rural America during the Great Depression. On the 4th of July 1946, Coney Island, New York, was packed with thousands of visitors celebrating the holiday, a vibrant image of post-war American life and the collective joy of a nation emerging from years of conflict and sacrifice. In 1907, a street sweeper moved methodically through the roads of Berlin, Germany, a quietly dignified image of the men whose daily labor kept the growing modern city clean and functioning at the dawn of the 20th century. Around 1935, a riveter descended from the tower of the Golden Gate Bridge during its construction, a brief human moment captured high above San Francisco Bay during the building of one of the world's most celebrated engineering achievements. In France in 1907, bicycle maker Paul Cornu built and flew the Cornu helicopter, becoming the first person in history to achieve vertical manned flight in a helicopter, a milestone that would eventually transform aviation forever. On the 11th of March 1974, Hiro Onoda, the Imperial Japanese soldier who had hidden in the Philippine jungle for 30 years after the end of World War II, finally emerged, one of history's most extraordinary stories of loyalty and isolation. Photographed in 1937 near Seattle, Washington, this Hooverville shanty town was one of hundreds that sprang up across the United States during the 1930s. Their makeshift structures silently bearing witness to the depth of the Great Depression's human toll. In July 1939 in Oklahoma City, a family lived in a tent within a community camp, their temporary shelter a vivid and heartbreaking symbol of the displacement and poverty that defined the lives of millions of Americans during the Great Depression. In 1897, a woman was photographed churning milk into butter while absorbed in reading a book with a small kitten nearby, a charming and quietly remarkable image of a woman finding intellectual enrichment within the demands of everyday domestic work. A before and after comparison of the Warsaw Royal Castle, thriving in the early 1900s and reduced to ruins by 1945 following German occupation, stands as a devastating visual record of the systematic destruction inflicted on Poland's cultural heritage during World War II. A speed limit sign from the 1920s asked drivers simply to honor the posted limit, a gentle and almost quaint approach to road safety from an era when the automobile was still new enough that the rules governing it had yet to fully harden. Looking out the window of Apollo 11 in July 1969, an astronaut gazed upon the Earth from space during one of humanity's greatest achievements, a moment of breathtaking perspective shared with the world as men prepared to walk on the moon. In a photograph taken between 1890 and 1915, two babies were balanced in baskets hanging from the sides of a mule, a striking and unusual image whose location remains unknown, yet whose quiet human charm has endured across more than a century. In Pellston, Michigan, in 1910, cyclists rode specially built bikes that ran directly on railroad tracks, a practical and inventive solution to rural transportation that captured the spirit of American ingenuity at the turn of the 20th century. Photographed in Barcelona in 1906, the Sagrada Familia Basilica was still in its earliest stages of construction, offering a rare look at the modest beginnings of what would become one of the most ambitious and enduring architectural projects in history. In the 1980s, hundreds of miners worked the Serra Pelada gold mines in Brazil, their bodies caked in mud as they climbed makeshift ladders in a scene of raw human labor that became one of the most haunting images of the decade. Seen from a rarely used angle, this photograph reveals that the Great Pyramids of Giza stand less than 1 kilometer from the edge of the modern city of Giza, shattering the common image of the ancient monuments rising from a vast and empty desert. In 1902, a woman was photographed playing golf at Braid Hills in Edinburgh, Scotland, a composed and quietly powerful image of female participation in sport at a time when women's presence in public athletic life was still far from widely accepted. On the 13th of December 1972, astronaut Gene Cernan smiled for the camera on the lunar surface, his spacesuit coated in moon dust, in what would become one of the final images taken during humanity's last crewed mission to the moon. In 1887, photographer Jacob Riis documented an Italian immigrant rag, Picker, and her baby living in a cramped tenement room on Jersey Street in New York City, a haunting image of the poverty endured by generations of newcomers to America. Captured on the 3rd of April 1945 by the United States Ninth Army, this photograph shows 16-year-old German soldier Hans-Georg Henke, his youth standing in stark and heartbreaking contrast to the devastation of a war that had consumed the final years of his childhood. In 1932, a worker was photographed cleaning a corner eagle ornament high atop the Chrysler Building in New York City, suspended above the streets in a breathtaking image of the everyday daring required to maintain one of America's most iconic skyscrapers. In Washington, D.C., in 1921, the aftermath of an automobile collision was captured in a photograph that serves as an early reminder that the dangers of road travel emerged almost as quickly as the vehicles themselves. In 1915, a family pulled to the side of a dirt road and spread a picnic, a simple and warm image of everyday American leisure that captures the spirit of a quieter era before highways and speed transformed the experience of travel. After winning 4 gold medals at the 1936 Berlin Olympics, Jesse Owens arrived in London to a welcome that stood in powerful contrast to the racial ideology promoted by the Nazi hosts of the games he had so decisively and memorably conquered. Photographed between 1915 and 1925 on King Island, Alaska, this portrait of an Inuit woman wearing a cross around her neck and carrying a child on her back quietly documents the intersection of indigenous culture and Christian missionary influence in the early 20th century Arctic. Opened in Chicago in 1963, Marina Tower's distinctive high-rise apartment building featured a built-in parking garage spiraling up its lower floors, a bold and innovative design that made the building one of the most recognizable architectural landmarks of its era. In 1955, a steam train crossed the Sandsend Viaduct near Whitby in North Yorkshire, a graceful image of British rail travel during the final years before diesel and electric trains began to replace the steam engines that had defined the railways for over a century. Glass soda bottles lined the shelves of shops in the late 1970s and early 1980s, a familiar and tactile piece of everyday retail life that recalls a time before plastic packaging transformed the way beverages were sold and consumed. In 1921, 2 moonshiners were arrested by federal agents near St. Paul, Minnesota, a scene playing out across the United States during Prohibition as authorities attempted to enforce the nationwide ban on the production and sale of alcohol. In Nevada in 1960, photographer Inge Morath captured a casino patron beside a one-armed bandit slot machine, documenting the neon-lit gambling culture of the American West at a time when Las Vegas was rapidly reinventing itself as the nation's entertainment capital. Around 1940, Howard Hughes sat at the controls of his 200-ton flying boat, the Spruce Goose, a colossal aircraft that represented one of the most ambitious and controversial aviation engineering projects ever undertaken by a private individual. In 1918 in Washington, D.C., a Ford Model T was converted into a mobile sandwich shop and parked on the city streets, a resourceful and entrepreneurial use of the automobile that foreshadowed the food truck culture of a much later era. Workers were photographed nearly 200 feet above the ground assembling the Hindenburg, still the physically largest flying vehicle ever constructed by human hands, in a vertigo-inducing image of the extraordinary scale of this ill-fated engineering achievement. Taken in 1855 by photographer James Robertson in the Ottoman Empire, this is believed to be the earliest known photograph documenting the preparation of doner kebab, offering a rare visual record of a culinary tradition that would one day spread across the entire world. In 1932, Jean Bugatti stood alongside his Bugatti Royale, one of only 7 ever built, a photograph that captures perhaps the most exclusive and extravagant automobile ever produced at a moment when the great age of European coach building was nearing its end. In the 1920s, an oil gusher erupted at Signal Hill near Long Beach, California, one of the most productive oil fields in the world, a dramatic image of the petroleum boom that transformed both the landscape and the economy of the American West. In 1954, Darrell Gillum made history by becoming the first KFC franchise owner east of the Mississippi, using a cement mixer to blend Colonel Sanders' coating of 11 herbs and spices to ensure his Kokomo restaurant delivered the same consistent flavor that had made the recipe famous. In the 1960s, model Kitty Nolan was photographed posing in front of the Tropicana in Las Vegas, a glamorous image that perfectly encapsulates the mid-century allure of the Nevada desert's most dazzling and extravagant entertainment destination. In Missouri in 1938, an experimental radio facsimile machine received a newspaper transmitted by a radio station during overnight hours, an early and largely forgotten chapter in the long history of humanity's attempts to deliver news instantly across great distances. In East Germany in 1987, computers were paraded through the streets in a striking and unusual political display, a bizarre spectacle that revealed the lengths to which the state would go to project an image of technological progress to its own citizens. In Rotterdam in the Netherlands in 1937, customers ate herring in the traditional Dutch manner, a candid street food scene that documents one of the most enduring and beloved culinary customs in the country's long cultural history. Photographed in 1911, Grand Duchesses Tatiana and Olga Romanov of the Russian Empire were captured in a portrait that, viewed in hindsight, carries the deep shadow of the dynasty's impending collapse and the tragedy that awaited the entire imperial family just 7 years later.